Welcome to the Qasim Rashid Show, a civil rights lawyer here to expose all forms of injustice with a sprinkling of dad jokes in between. Here's your host, Qasim Rashid.
Good morning and peace be upon you this beautiful Sunday or whatever day you're listening and wherever you're tuning in from. My name is Qasim Rashid and this is the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126. The most awesome show in the multiverse. My friends, thank you as always for your emails, your notes, for tuning in, your texts, your tweets. I'm grateful you all listen to the show and grateful you share it with your family and friends. If you're listening on Substack, make sure you hit that subscribe button so we can continue to create this content. We've got a great show lined up today. Valimont is here. Valimont is running for Congress in Florida's 1st congressional district. Election is coming up. It's a special election. And if that district sounds familiar, it's because this was the district held by the credibly accused statutory rapist Matt Gaetz. And I point that out because that is what the Republican-led ethics inquiry into him concluded, which forced him to resign before they were able to basically hold him accountable, which is, par for the course for cowards like him. But in any case, we've got a real chance to elect a fighter in Valimont, and she'll be on in just a bit to talk about her campaign and what folks can do to hopefully get her elected, get her across the finish line. Before that, I want to talk about what's wrong with the current Democratic Party. And by the way, how gay is the answer to that? You guys may have listened to my interview last week with former Congresswoman Marie Newman, where we co-authored a piece asking, do Americans need a changed Democratic Party or a new third party altogether? And not 48 hours passed before Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer basically proved the point for us. A month ago at a rally, Schumer screamed into a microphone that we will fight and we will win. And he chanted it over and over and over again like a parrot. Now, at the pivotal moment when Democrats needed to rally around a unified message to Trump and to MAGA Republicans that we are not going to approve this, unilateral budget bill that risks gutting $880 billion from Medicaid, destroying Social Security and Medicare. What does Schumer do? He goes against the entire party and he capitulates. Let's be clear. MAGAs control the House, the Senate, and the White House. The Democratic Party is not in a very strong position. And every single day, Trump and Musk are working to gut our democracy, attack working families, consolidate power, deport documented immigrants, throw people into concentration camps. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on. We had one piece of leverage: force Republicans to own the government shutdown and force them to reopen it. But Schumer, given that one piece of leverage, folded like a cardboard box in a rainstorm. AOC said it best, that Republicans control everything, and therefore, if they want to suffer the consequences of their actions, then they should suffer the consequences of their actions. But on areas where they need Democratic input, they should ask for Democratic input and get compromise on issues that Democrats also care about. You can't, on one hand, own the entire government process and then blame somebody else when things go bad. That's not how things work. But apparently, Schumer believes that's how things work, and he folded horribly. The American people were begging Senate Democrats to reject the GOP's grotesque funding bill. House Democrats were united in voting against it. The majority of Senate Democrats demanded Schumer hold the line, but rather than force Republicans to own their failure and thus negotiate in good faith with Democrats, Schumer just threw the entire American people under the bus and lined with the very people he claimed he would fight against and win. And his justifications just defy comprehension. And here's the thing. He's now claiming that, well, if we just kick this can down the road 6 months, Trump will be unpopular, and then Republicans will be forced to negotiate in good faith. In good faith. I swear to God, this guy, I'm going to talk about Charlie Brown in a second, but let's just refresh Schumer's memory for a moment here. Trump was convicted of tax fraud. His company was found liable for decades of corruption. Decades. Did it diminish his popularity? No, it did not. Trump incited a violent, deadly insurrection. He tried to overthrow the US government. He then pardoned the white supremacists and Nazis, including the guy who wore the grotesquely anti-Semitic Camp Auschwitz shirt. Yes, like Google this. Trump pardons guy who wore Camp Auschwitz shirt. You will find the guy, his name, all that. Trump pardoned him after the insurrection, after trying to overthrow the US government. Did that diminish his popularity? No. He's still the president. Elected again. Trump was found liable for sexual assault and rape. A judge and jury in a civil trial ruled him a rapist as per the textbook definition of the word. More than 24 women have accused him of rape and sexual assault. Did that diminish his popularity? No. Right now, he stands with Musk and his Nazi salutes. He promotes vicious anti-Semitism. He's removed all mention of the Holocaust Memorial from federal websites. He's Islamophobic, he's racist, he's misogynistic, he's xenophobic against non-white immigrants, still putting out trash against Haitians. Has that resulted in a diminishing of his popularity? No, it has not. Even now, the stock market is crashing. A global trade war is rising. Inflation and unemployment are increasing. And guess what? Democrats have a 21% approval rating. Republicans have a 40% approval rating. Trump has a 47% approval rating. He is still more popular than Democrats, certainly more popular than Chuck Schumer. And Schumer's idea is, let's give him even more time, more money, and more power. This isn't just betrayal. It is utter incompetence. I'm not going to call him Chuck Schumer anymore. He's Charlie Schumer, like Charlie Brown. The Republicans are Lucy, and the football is the GOP's faux deal. And they're promised to do it the right thing this time. And Charlie Schumer is yet again falling for it. It's become painfully routine, and the American people are paying the price. And the thing is, by voting with Republicans, he is handing Trump and Musk a budget bill with no limit on where and how they can spend funds. On what planet is giving trillions of dollars to two unaccountable billionaires a good idea? It is absolute lunacy. And for those saying, well, it's Schumer just one person, he doesn't actually speak for the party, let's be clear. He is the Democratic Senate leader. His actions, by definition, speak for the party. And the Senate Democrats who disagree with Schumer, I'm sorry, you're not off the hook. If you found his betrayal truly objectionable, you would vote to remove him. But you won't, and that makes you complicit. And I say this with pain because I know many of these Senate Democrats personally, and I know them to be good people. But if you're not going to remove somebody who's complicit with Trump, then you're enabling that. It's uncomfortable, but it's wholly necessary to acknowledge this fact. We need you to act. We don't need more politicians holding tiny little stupid signs and coordinating stupid outfits while Trump consolidates power and enables fascism. We need leadership with the courage to fight injustice and hold the line when it matters. But until that happens, don't be surprised that the Democratic approval is only 21%. We'll talk about this with Gay Valimont as well, but there's a poll that came out that asked people, what word would you describe Democrats as? What would you use? What's the first word that comes to mind when you think of Democrats? You know what the first word was? That the majority of folks said? Weak. W-E-A-K, weak. Democrats are seen as weak. Against Cadet Bone Spurs, they're seen as weak. It's wild to me that this is where we are as a country right now. Over the last month, I've received literally thousands of messages from lifelong Democrats saying the Democratic Party's capitulation and weakness in the face of Trump has convinced them to leave the party altogether. People are fed up with cowardice, and the Democratic Party refuses to listen. We need to call this out. It's not divisive to call this out. It's accountability to call this out. You can't, on one hand, tell me if you don't vote, you don't get to complain. And then when I vote and work my butt off to get these folks elected, tell me, well, it's divisive to complain. Well, which one is it? You want me to just shut up and sit down, donate my money and time, and then not have a say in how that money and time is spent? Nonsense. I got an email from somebody saying that this was the last straw for me, talking about Charlie Schumer's capitulation. Because this was the last straw for me. I will no longer vote for them, so a progressive party needs to form. or I'm sitting out in 26 and 28, first time ever in 30 years. History will remember Mitch McConnell and Charlie Brown Schumer, as the two US senators most effective in getting things done for the Republican Party. And that's the fundamental problem. It's clear that whatever the outcome of this budget fight, Charlie Schumer is not the person to lead the Democratic Party. He should resign. The Senate should elect a new leader, one who will not bow to Trump's fascism, and one who will actually fight for America's working people. Otherwise, the Democratic Party will continue to bleed supporters, and we will not get any turnout, because if they haven't noticed by now, in losing 2 of the last 3 elections, simply saying, I'm not a fascist, is not a winning strategy. You need to tell people what to vote for, not just to vote against. And the American people are exhausted. We cannot afford more weakness. The time for excuses is over. They need to fight, or they need to step aside and be replaced. And when we come back from break, I'm excited to introduce you to Gay Valimont, who is running a powerful campaign, a 100% people-funded campaign with the average contribution, I think like $32, $33 per donor in Florida's 1st congressional district. I can't wait for you to meet her. She's a phenomenal, powerful leader, and we need to get her elected. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View, channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. We'll be right back with Gay Valimont after this break. Welcome back. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View, channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. I'm extraordinarily excited about our guest today. Gay Valimont is here. She is running for Congress in Florida's 1st congressional district, which you might recall was formerly held by a credibly accused statutory rapist, Matt Gaetz. She's running against another MAGA cookie cutter plant carpetbagger who's not from the district, but is trying to buy his way in. Gay is the fighter we need. I've written about her in the past, and I'm grateful to speak with her today. Gay, thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back.
You know, I've been in your shoes before. I empathize. It's an extraordinarily stressful time. You're running in 18 different directions, so I'm even more grateful to have some time. And you know, we're coming up pretty close on the election. It's a special election. Talk a bit about the gravity of why this election is so important. I mean, beyond the obvious that we need to elect another Democrat to Congress,
Right.
what would this election mean for the broader national narrative about where we are in our country right now?
Well, I think it will speak volumes. It'll say a lot. Our district is made up of active duty military, retired military, vets, and public servants, civil servants, which knew that would turn into a bad word.
Yes.
And everybody's getting axed right now. Like we are in dire straits. And so I plan on being that backstop. I plan on getting there and bucking my chest up and saying, "Come on, Democrats, it's time to play hardball," because it is.
We're sitting at a point where there's only a 3-seat majority in the House, and we elect you, that's down to a 2-seat majority. We're that much closer to flipping the House, getting rid of Mike Johnson as Speaker, and being, you talk about a backstop, being a major blockade to Trump's fascist agenda. And more importantly, in your district locally, I didn't know this, but you guys have the 2nd most number of veterans of any district in the country. And we have a Trump administration that is cutting, 80,000 VA jobs, which is mind-boggling to me. How is that contrast playing out locally? I mean, are folks understanding that a vote for you is a vote for veterans, and a vote for the other guy is a vote to screw veterans over? I mean, are folks understanding that very clear message?
I feel like they are. I feel like people are reaching out to us every day with a different story about what's happened to them. I think they are putting it all together. And you have to keep in mind, this district overwhelmingly elected Trump. And so
Yeah,
they wanted change. And they put their faith in this man to do the right thing and take care of our vets. And they feel betrayed, and prior to that, they were betrayed by Matt Gaetz. So people
yeah,
around here have a bad taste in their mouth. And I believe this time around that they're going to start voting on their wallet, their
yeah.
health care, their life sustainability, because it shouldn't be at this point. It's not a popularity contest anymore. It is about life-saving measures, because these people are, if they're not on Social Security already, they are planning on being on Social Security and
Right.
planning on that money being there as a retired vet. It is just they are starting to wake up. And tonight we have a town hall that I'm really excited about, and I get to hear some personal stories
Right.
of what's happening around the district with our vets.
I've been pointing this out too since the election, that this is really not about red versus blue. This is about whether we want a functioning democracy, whether we want people to have the basic necessities of human life, versus do we want to give billionaires even more money? And I've always been of the opinion that, look, if you build a widget and build a company and make tons of money, good for you. God love you. That's fantastic. What I don't want to see is, now that you've made it, you pull up the ladder behind you and give the next guy the shaft. What I don't want to see is that now that you've made it on federal subsidies, you say, nope, I'm not going to allow anyone else to have the benefit of taxpayer subsidies, especially small businesses, especially tax cuts for working people. And that's the message that I think is resonating really well, especially with our neighbors on the right of the spectrum, who are, whether
Yeah.
you're center right, or, ultra MAGA, as Biden once called them. I think you have to appreciate that this fight that we're in right now is really not about left versus right. It's about working class versus the billionaire class.
Yeah.
How's that message? I mean, what's been the response from folks on the ground when you talk about that message?
Well, I think to drive that message home, we have to talk about what the Republicans just put in their budget proposal. They want to take $800 billion away from Medicaid so that they can
Yeah,
put that money directly in the pockets of billionaires. And I think what people have to understand is, if you make less than $735,000 a year, which is not a bunch of my friends, you're not going to get a significant tax break. People wanted to, they talk about how their wallet was better under the Trump administration. Well, kudos for having that great memory before COVID happened. But no, that wasn't the case. Nobody got great tax breaks unless you
yeah,
were a billionaire.
that's
Um,
right.
and that's
That's
got to hit
right.
home to people. People have to realize that things are getting worse for the normal people, for us. You know, in Florida, we have our insurance crisis that we have. And then on
Yeah,
top of that, they're going to put tariffs on top of that. It's almost unsustainable to live here.
it's completely unsustainable. And I want to add one of the data points, that we have worse wealth and income inequality now than we did after the Great Depression. I mean, that should
Yep.
shock people, that we are worse off now than after the Great Depression. And I always tell folks that when we talk about raising taxes on billionaires, what we're doing is following the Republican model of taxation post World War II. It was a
Right.
Republican President Eisenhower that said, let's tax billionaires, the super wealthy, at 70, 80, 90% marginal tax. And just to be clear, what marginal tax means is that after a certain threshold, and like I think at the time it was after 10 million, now let's say it would be after 100 million, you charge the 80, 90%. But that's how we electrified America. That's how we built the rural highway system. That's how we built, libraries
Exactly.
all over the country, all these things that we benefit from. And guess what? We became a global powerhouse in industry. We became a global powerhouse in our economy. None of these super wealthy people left. People still flocked here because the opportunity that we provide. And you were able to have a
Yeah.
living wage on a single family income and afford a home. And all we're saying is, we're not making this left versus right. We're agreeing that Republicans had a good plan back then. Let's go back to that. That's one point I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to make about what you said is, this aspect of being a fighter. There was a poll that just came out. And if you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Gay Valimont, who's running for Congress in Florida's 1st congressional district. Please vote for her, donate to her, do all the good things. You can go on her website and volunteer as well, even if you're not in Florida. But there's a poll that came out after Chuck Schumer capitulated on the continuing resolution deal that asked people, how do you describe Democrats in Washington? And the number one word that came up was the word weak. The number 2 word was poorly. Number 3 word was childish. Number 4 word was bad. None of those are positive words, but the
No.
top one is weak. What's your message to folks who are sitting on the sidelines and saying, how do we know that Gay will be the fighter we need, not just another weak Democrat?
Right. Well, I'm not a career politician either. And my opponent is. He's been in politics for 30 years. I'm telling everybody I'm just like you. I pay my bills here. I pay my homeowner's insurance, my health insurance, my car insurance that is all very expensive in Florida. I'm just like you. I have to go and fight because it's my neighbors. That's the thing that my opponent and I don't have in common. He has no idea how to represent the people here because he's never been here. He's never lived here. And he's, worth $10 million. I am not.
Yeah,
And I'm just a normal person that, you know, worked an hourly rate in healthcare. And I know how hard it is to get by. I know how hard it is for you to pay your health insurance every month and then it not be there when you need it.
Yeesh.
It's common problems or normal problems that everybody faces, except for that top 1%.
Right.
Uh, and it's unfair. It's unfair to the people. And I hope people start to understand that. I tell people, this resonated last week with a group that I was with. What if we put George Soros in front of, in charge of, cleaning out the government under Biden? Would
Wow.
And that's essentially what they're putting
Yeah,
Elon Musk in charge of going into our finances and having control of our social security numbers. It is outrageous what we're
absolutely right.
and that he is governing from an app. It is This is where we've come. And if we don't have people like me to stand up and raise hell, then it's going to keep going down because I am shocked and upset with what Chuck Schumer did. Cannot believe he rolled over.
Yeah.
He is from an old school of Democrats that wants to follow the rules, and we
You know,
can't fight fire if we
yeah,
don't throw fire back.
I couldn't agree more, Gay. I was reading a New York Times article from 2009 when the ACA was being debated. And a thoughtful person left a comment on the article saying that the Democratic senator that we have negotiating on behalf of Democrats has given up every condition that we had to Republicans, every single one. Why should they negotiate with us when he's giving up every single condition? And she lists out all the things that we've given up. That Democratic senator she was talking about was Chuck Schumer. This is who he's always been. He's not a
Yeah.
fighter. He's not a leader. And I hope Senate Democrats replace him with an actual fighter and leader. And I hope that the folks of the first district replace Gates with you, an actual fighter and leader. And you talk about Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and how critical it is. Can you frame just how, I mean, for folks to understand how seriously the MAGA administration is focused on stripping these away? Because I think some people don't think it's going to happen.
Right. Well, people didn't think Project 2025 would happen either, but
Yeah.
check the pages, people. It's happening. Um, yeah. Trump says he's not going to touch Social Security. He's going to make it better. Well, that's touching it.
Yeah.
Um, we can't trust Elon Musk and Donald Trump right now to touch anything that requires our veterans or our elderly to go on with their lives. It is People are having panic attacks. People are calling me and going, "What am I going to do? I voted for this guy. He's about to take away my Social Security." If we don't step in and do something major, I mean, it's all going to be privatized. That's their goal. They want it
Yep.
to be privatized, take it away from the federal government, and which is going to make our cost increase.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for folks who think that privatizing it is going to increase its efficiency, I just want you to look at one example. We pay double per capita for our private healthcare than every developed country in the world that has guaranteed healthcare, without exception. We have longer wait times. Contrary to the mythology that you've heard, we have longer wait times in every developed country that has guaranteed healthcare. Contrary to the mythology you've heard, we have lower life expectancy, higher maternal mortality, and higher infant mortality because we have privatized healthcare. Now, yes, people will fly here for specialized care, as they should. But when we talk about the overall impact of privatized healthcare, we are paying double for lower quality care, lower life expectancy, and higher maternal and infant mortality. And Gay, I think the point is that's what's going to translate to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid if we allow that to become privatized as well. One of the really cool things I love about your platform, Gay, is who you're funded by. I should say better yet, who you're not funded by. You're not funded by super PACs and corporate PACs. You're funded by we the people. And that's something that more than 90% of Americans want. They want to elect people to Congress who are exclusively accountable to them. And I would love for you to talk about that and just talk about how difficult it is to run a congressional campaign on people funding.
Yeah. Well, I don't owe anybody anything except for the people. My opponent took $2 million from the insurance companies. Of course, he's not going to do anything to help the people when he's working for the insurance companies. I think, and I wasn't supposed to say this last week, they told me how much money we'd raised. So I got on stage and went, woo, we raised $6.8 million. And our average donation is $33.
Amazing. That's amazing.
It is completely funded by the people. I owe nobody anything except for the people. And that's the way it should be, right?
The way it should be. And Gay, I would be willing to bet that if we did a poll of your donors, you would find folks who are bleeding heart liberals and ultra MAGAs and centrists and independents and folks across the political spectrum. Because if there's one thing that Americans agree on, despite how divided we seem, and I tell folks, we're not as divided as it seems in the media.
I agree.
We agree that we should have public servants funded by the public to serve the public, not corporate puppets who give you lip service and fly in from out of district because they're worth $10 million and work for the insurance company. So I commend you on that. And I'm begging voters, this is a person that you can trust because she is leading by example. It is so easy, and I've run for Congress myself. It is so easy to accept corporate donations and convince yourself, no, it doesn't influence me. It's so easy to do that. It takes somebody with a spine of steel to say, you know what? Not only am I going to reject this corporate money, I don't want there to even be the perception that I might be influenced by this corporate. Because if that perception's there, then that's the reality. And I think voters understand that you can take money from the insurance company and vote against them. But the one time you vote with the insurance company, it's going to be, well, they bought her off and all that trust is gone. And so now your votes are actually going to be based on what people want as opposed to what insurance companies want. And I just wanted to call that out and commend you on that. Folks, if you're just tuning in, absolutely. Folks, you're just tuning in. We're speaking with Gay Valimont, running for Congress in Florida's first congressional district. I want to lean in a bit more into this insurance aspect because I've got family who lives in Florida and their homeowners insurance has doubled, tripled since the time they bought their home 5-6 years ago. It's getting worse. The guy you're running against, I'm not going to name him because I don't want to give him free airtime, but I will say this about him. To my understanding, he sat on the state board that was supposed to oversee insurance to regulate it effectively. And not only did he take money from the people he was regulating, he's allowed them to kind of run amok. Talk a bit more about that, because I think people need to understand that by electing him, you're actually letting the wolf in the henhouse.
I say arsonist to put a fire out, but same thing. Yeah, he is the CFO of Florida, and it falls just under his purview to regulate insurance and the companies that work here. And he had several opportunities to help cap insurance. And I get it that Republicans hate the word regulate. But when it is affecting consumers the way it's affecting Floridians, you have to
Yes,
do something about it, unless you take $2 million from the insurance companies.
right.
And he makes no apologies about that. Um, I
It's
cannot
more,
overstate. Yeah, I can't overstate the number one thing that Floridians complain about is cost of living and insurance rates, and that is solely falls under him. And then he was given this seat to run in. Well, I say given. He also paid for his endorsement
of
from
course.
Trump. So so there's that. And it was funny, a commercial, or I did an interview yesterday with the local news, and they also interviewed him. And he said that the thing that he has is a bat phone straight to the White House. So when problems arise at the VA clinic, he can just make that phone call. That's what he
Well,
said.
well, the problem is that problems are arising. If you're going to be cutting 80,000 jobs, I don't care how many calls you make at that point.
Nope.
And you talk about efficiency. So many of the workers that have been fired by so-called Doge courts have ordered to be rehired with back pay. And so now we have workers who had uh, committed to serving the public as a federal employee, not being able to work for the last month to the detriment of all of us, now getting back pay for a month. I mean, I'm glad for them that they got a free month's paid vacation. That's great. But I'm not glad for the stress caused and the anxiety caused and the people who have, lost their homes. I was talking to a couple of folks who work in food clinics for people who are food insecure. And they're saying that
Hmm.
the top demographics of people are now former federal employees who need to make sure they can get food on the table.
Yeah.
Gay, we're down to our last couple of minutes, and give us the details. When is the election? How can folks volunteer? How can folks donate to your campaign? What can folks nationally do to help ensure we cross a finish line with a victory here?
Right. There's so 13 days left. Woo. And I've been running for Congress for 19 months. So
Wow.
there's a finish line. There's a finish line at the end of this. Um, we start our early voting tour on the 24th. That's this Friday. We will be out at every voting location, early voting location. We are putting DJs out at every voting location to make sure that there's enough uh, excitement, energy to make sure that people come out. Um, we have a town hall tonight, and you with Amy McGrath with our veterans issues. So Amy McGrath is coming in to help us answer some questions. And yeah, everybody go to gay4congress.com, check us out, read my platform. I believe in this work. I believe in serving the people. I'm not using this as a stepping stone to go to the next place. I want to serve the people of this district, go to Washington, do my job, and come home because this will always be my home. And so I will always represent the people of this district. Go to gay4congress.com, join our movement. Pensacola is beautiful this time of year. If you'd like to come knock on some doors, if not, join a phone bank. We have them almost every day. And if there's nothing else you can do, drop us a couple bucks, help us get to the end. And I appreciate the help.
And for those wondering, Gay was smart enough to have reserved gay FOR Congress.com and gay the number 4 Congress.com. I just checked right now. That's brilliant. That's thinking 2 steps ahead. That's fantastic.
And Gay
Gay,
Valimont for Congress.com. We got them all.
that's the way to do it. Gay, I don't say this lightly. It's very difficult to find people you can be proud to throw your name behind. It's very difficult to find members of the public running for Congress that you can say, wow, this person really gets it. And looking at your platform, looking at the work you've done in the past, you check all the boxes. You've been active in the community. You've led by example. You're running a people-funded campaign. You aren't afraid to be critical of Democrats and Republicans because you are more aligned with justice and with partisan politics. And you're fighting for working people above all else. So From my standpoint, my only regret is I don't live in Fuller's first district, because you would have my vote right away. But I am grateful to have had the time to spend with you today. Folks, if you're listening in, go to gayforcongress.com and let's get Gay elected. Gay, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View, channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. That is Gay Valimont for Congress, our hopeful next Congresswoman from Florida's 1st Congressional District. Go to gayforcongress.com, and we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View, channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. If you're listening on Substack, please do hit that subscribe button so we can continue to create this content for you. That was Gay Valimont, a brilliant candidate running a fiery campaign. You heard her. She has been running for 19 months. We're in the final 2 weeks before her election. And she's a fighter. She is the kind of fighter that we need. Because here's the thing. The status quo hasn't been working. If it was working, we wouldn't have a Trump in the White House. We wouldn't have a Congress controlled by Republicans, and the House and the Senate. We wouldn't have a Supreme Court controlled by Republicans as well. This has just not been working. And so I wanted to close out the last 10, 15 minutes of the show, kind of talking about why we are in the situation that we're in and what needs to change. And I want to talk about it not with theory, but with an actual practical example of what corporate Democrats are doing to destroy our party, destroy the party. Let me remove myself for just a moment, just for the sake of discussion and objectivity, to destroy the party and to destroy our country. And yeah, I'm being very blunt about this. And some of you are going to say, well, corporate Democrat is still better than a Republican. I want you to hold that thought. I want you to hold that thought, not because I disagree, but because I want you to understand what you're saying when you make that comment. Because it doesn't make sense that Democrats have a 21%, the worst approval rating in history, while Trump is at 47% and the complicit Congress of Republicans is at 40%. Still double what Democrats have. It's not an accident. We have to understand how we got here. And simply blaming Republicans is not a strategy. It's not. The American people, particularly the Democratic Party's base, is sick and tired of the hypocrisy in politics. They're sick and tired of the hypocrisy among Democrats as well. And until we change the Democratic Party, and our republic will continue to fall. And we must name the culprits. The culprits are corporate Democrats. That's the obstructionism that we need to overcome. So let's start with some basic facts on what Democrats actually believe. More than 90% of Democrats believe climate change is real and it's caused by human activity, particularly by big oil companies like Exxon. Not a controversial statement to make. Next week, we'll have on Stephen Donziger, a climate activist and human rights lawyer who took on Chevron. And he's just a brilliant thought leader in this space. More than 90% of Democrats believe climate change is real. More than 90% of Democrats believe civil rights are sacred and should never be compromised for corporate profits. Like, if you're a Democrat, tell me if you disagree. Are civil rights sacred? Yes or no? Okay, good. We agree they are. So they shouldn't be compromised. More than 90% of Democrats believe banks should be regulated and taxpayers should stop bailing out major corporations when they run amok and try to destroy our economy. Let those banks fail. Stop using taxpayer money to bail out billionaires. Not a controversial statement to make. More than 90% of Democrats believe that corporate money has no place in politics. In fact, more than 90% of Americans believe that. We want politicians to be funded by people, not by corporate or super PACs. Again, not a controversial statement to make. More than 70%, some say 80%, of Democrats believe that healthcare is a human right. And they want to join every developed nation on earth to ensure guaranteed universal healthcare. More than 70% of Democrats believe in an end to the arms trade causing global conflict. In fact, 77% wanted the Biden administration to stop arming Netanyahu. And while this is not an exhaustive list, each of these are wildly popular policies among Democratic voters that every Democratic politician should support. So when I talk about this, it's not theory. This is reality. And I want to provide, in these last 8 or 9 minutes a clear case study of one corporate Democrat who, if I didn't tell you he was a Democrat, I promise you, you would think he's a Republican. That question earlier, well, a Democrat's still better than every Republican. Keep that question in mind as I describe this corporate Democrat. Because the thing is, he's not alone. Too many corporate Democrats follow this model. It is an unsustainable model. These saboteurs are complicit in the collapse of our republic because they betray the Democratic Party principles. They side with MAGA Republicans at critical moments, and they give Republicans cover to claim that they're cruel and sometimes fascist. Yes, fascist policies have bipartisan support. So as I list out these receipts, I want you to consider why we tolerate such politicians in our party. How such politicians are the cause of the distrust voters have with the Democratic Party, and how much longer will we tolerate them before demanding they leave the party altogether, resign from their seats, retire, and just kind of go off into the sunset. So in our case study, I present to you Congressman Bill Foster, a corporate-funded, multimillionaire politician who is on the wrong side of every one of these issues I mentioned earlier, who has actively worked with Republicans to undermine our basic civil rights and human rights for corporate profit. Foster, who I think turned 70 this year, people like him aren't just a problem for the Democratic Party. Their policies are a threat to our democracy. And it is not hyperbole. It's a factual observation of his 8 terms in Congress, maybe his 9 terms. His voting record, his financial ties, his outright refusal to stand for core Democratic Party principles reveals a really harsh truth. He's effectively a Republican hiding behind a blue label. But again, here are the receipts. Don't take my word for it. For example, more than 70% of Democrats believe healthcare is a human right. Foster's voting record doesn't. Now, credit where due, he voted for the Affordable Care Act back in 2009. Good on you, Bill. But then he took about $500,000 from big health and big pharma. And since then, he's voted at least 3 times with Republicans to gut the ACA. He voted for HR 3350, which rescinds the protection for people with pre-existing conditions. He voted for HR 3522, which would have rescinded the ban on charging women more than men for healthcare. He voted to pass HR 1190, which would have rescinded a protection on seniors. Had these bills that Bill Foster supported passed, it would have meant that people like my own daughter, for example, who has an incurable disease that is fatal if not treated, that is a pre-existing condition, it would have meant that she would be denied care. And Foster opposes guaranteed health care. He calls it unrealistic. Even though every developed nation on earth has it, to him it's unrealistic. Oh, and his beloved donors include United Health. Yeah, the Luigi Mangione United Health. Same company caught using AI to deny 90% of Medicare claims for senior citizens. Took their money, never returned it, never apologized, continues to cash their checks proudly. Is this who we want representing the Democratic Party? Let's talk about climate justice. Because folks are like, well, Bill Foster's a scientist. If you don't know this about him, he's a PhD scientist. He's a physicist. And he brags about his PhD degree all the time. You would think it's tattooed to his forehead. You can't talk to him for more than 5 seconds without him reminding you that he's a physicist. Good on you, Bill. But here's my problem with Bill and his physics degree. His voting record says otherwise. He votes with Republicans to expand offshore drilling during a climate crisis. He supports fracking during a climate crisis. He supports the junk science of carbon capture, the same trash that Exxon and big oil use to justify continuing pollution. And speaking of Exxon, guess who proudly donates to Bill Foster, and guess who proudly takes their money? That's right. Bill Foster is happily funded to the tune of thousands of dollars from Exxon. We are in a climate catastrophe. California is on fire every year. But Bill Foster is too busy counting Exxon's dollar bills in his campaign account notice. And the thing is, it's scientists like Foster that give climate destruction a stamp of approval because it lets corporations like Exxon say, hey, what do you mean we're doing something wrong? Bill Foster, the scientist, supports us. He's complicit in climate disaster. Let's talk about the arms trade, foreign policy. Democrats want an end to the arms trade. They want an end to perpetual war. 77% wanted to stop arming Netanyahu. Bill Foster, happily takes money from defense contractors and pro-war PACs, happily funded Netanyahu and voted for more arms for him to commit genocide in Gaza, happily refused to even condemn the genocide or call for a ceasefire or uphold the U.S. Leahy laws or uphold international human rights law. If he can't stand up against war crimes when the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice confirmed these are war crimes, what does he actually stand for? Because I'm telling you, his betrayal of international human rights translates to his betrayal of domestic civil rights. Foster is one of the lead abusers of civil rights in this country, and I have the receipts to back it up. The Americans with Disabilities Act was passed in 1990 as a landmark piece of legislation to protect people with disabilities, to protect disabled Americans from abuse, to ensure they had accessibility. Under Trump, HR 620 was proposed to make it more difficult for people with disabilities to sue if they were discriminated against. More difficult. Bill Foster not only voted for HR 620, he co-sponsored it under a Trump regime. He chose to co-sponsor this cruel bill with Republicans in hopes that Donald Trump would sign it into law. Yes, apparently, to Bill Foster, disabled Americans have too much power in this country. And Bill Foster decided, you know what, you disabled Americans have way too much power. We're going to knock you down a size. This is the cruelty of this man. He voted to extend the Patriot Act to continue mass surveillance on the American people. Even now, he's been silent on the arbitrary arrest of Mahmoud Khalil. It's disgusting. This is the man who is representing Democrats in Congress, a person who wants more government surveillance, a person who wants less rights for disabled Americans. And by the way, he co-sponsored that bill after taking thousands of dollars from a lobbyist organization working on behalf of corporations and businesses who are sick and tired of having to be accountable to disabled Americans. This is the kind of person that this Bill Foster corporate Democrat is. So when you say, well, isn't it better to vote for a corporate Democrat over a Republican? My question to you is, what's the difference with people like Bill Foster? You want to talk about working class issues? Foster's worth $20 million. He voted with Obama for Dodd-Frank bank regulation. Then he took $500,000 from major banks. And then in 2017, voted with Trump to deregulate those banks. I mean, hypocrisy notwithstanding, what does it say about a person's ethics and intelligence if you trust Donald Trump, the convicted felon and known bank fraudster, on banking and finance? And by the way, that deregulation directly contributed to the near collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, which then Biden bailed out on taxpayer dime. He fights for bank bailouts, doesn't support student debt cancellation. Think about that. He will go to bat to bail out banks, but the working student who got screwed over by exploitative loans, nah, you go figure it out. Says Bill Foster, the man worth $20 million. But what else would you expect from a politician who takes campaign contributions from Amazon as Amazon exploits its workers as well? That's Bill Foster. And don't even get me started on his refusal to co-sponsor HR 40, a bill to merely study reparations for Black Americans. Apparently, even voting for research for economic justice for Black Americans is too much for Bill Foster. I mean, Americans trust Republicans over Democrats on the economy in large part due to corporate Democrats like Foster who refuse to prioritize the basic needs of working Americans. I could go on, but I'll add one last thing that's just insult to injury. In his 8-9 terms in Congress, he's passed 0 actual pieces of legislation. 0. He renamed a post office after Ronald Reagan. Yes, Reagan, the racist, homophobic architect of trickle-down economics, scamonomics, who gutted public education, slashed social programs, and made the rich even richer while the rest of us suffered. That's Foster's hero. We cannot afford corporate sycophants like Bill Foster in the Democratic Party. That is why the party is being described as weak, as poor, as childish, as bad, as ineffective. They are weak. There are all these things when they face MAGA opposition because it's difficult for them to fight against a party that they so fundamentally agree with. They should just drop the blue label, run as the Republicans they are, so people can actually elect a working class person funded by the people. And the thing is, this is not a purity test. 4 out of 5 Americans are screaming at the Democratic Party that your corporate democratic strategy is failing. That's the fundamental problem. You know, I'm reminded of, and I'll close with this, with the words of Ta-Nehisi Coates, Professor Ta-Nehisi Coates, where he says, we are at a moment right now where people are asking themselves, why can't the Democratic Party defend this assault on democracy? And I would submit to you that if you can't draw the line at genocide, you probably can't draw the line at democracy either. These words are stinging as they are true, and to offer nuance, I would draw his ire specifically to corporate Democrats because we have some amazing leaders in the Democratic Party. While no one person is perfect, but I will hold out these examples of people who get it right a lot of the time. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman AOC, Congressman Jamie Raskin, Congressman Mark Pecan, Congressman Andre Carson, Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, and the list goes on. And these people represented our party. If these are the fighters, MAGA Republicans would never win an election because we would be fighting for working people. We wouldn't have a 21% approval rating. If we want to reclaim our democracy, we must reject people like Foster. We must reject every corporate Democrat like him. Our movement is bigger than any one person, but it starts with holding them accountable. The question is, are we willing to fight, or are we willing to let corporate shills like Foster sell us out? It's long past time to choose. Whew. All right, my friends, I appreciate you tuning in. Be sure to follow us on social media at Qasim Rashid across all platforms. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're listening on Substack. We will continue to advance a show that builds on compassion and justice. Be sure to tune in same time, same place next week to hear it live at 10 a.m. Eastern on SiriusXM. Be fierce, lead with compassion and justice, and continue speaking truth to power. Until next week, peace.